Let me know when you guys can hear me. I've been doing a lot of these, obviously, and it's never been this bad. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. We've done quite a few of these streams and an occasional weekend stream. It's never been this crappy. But for whatever reason, it's ridiculous today. All right. So what did I miss? Any questions that were asked that I missed, please bring it up. Ludovic, do you see RAG attracting a lot of new players to CU, or do you see you adding players to RAG? I think certainly RAG could add some to CU. I don't see CU adding a lot to RAG. They're very different games. Some of the people who hadn't heard of CU may, give it a shot when they see the game. How's the progress of Ragnarok going? We haven't been spending a lot of time on it. We've been testing, certainly. But in terms of a lot of new stuff, no, not a lot. But it's going well. It's going well. I mean, if you come check it out, play it. It's up 24/7. Those servers are actually holding up very well, which is one of the reasons we're hopeful the 24/3 will. Ningoeth, hey. So you missed a couple things. 4 things, actually, plus a 20 plus top 20. The big thing is we added 4 new people to the team this week. 2 engineers, 2 designers. Well, one of the engineers is quite senior, lots of experience. Of the designers, one is also quite senior. And he was the former game director and senior game designer of Rift, Christopher Jr. He also worked at Ojai and SOE. Find the Beast, is CU still solvent? Well, the CU hasn't been solvent for a long time. It's not up there yet. The studio's being funded by investors, just as they've always been funding it. Your guys' contribution, ran out, as I've said many times over the years, and that's why I and they have put in more money. So it's no different than it was a month ago or a year ago in terms of the funding situation. I mean, it's the same for a lot of Kickstarter games, or any Kickstarter game that's late. Even Star Citizen. If all of a sudden ship sales stopped, they would be in a lot of trouble. Fortunately for them, they don't, so they keep going. But other studios, the guys over at Artcraft, took additional money. It's just the way of the world, when you're making the kind of games we're trying to make. Gandalf, let's see. Don't know if you answered this, but when will you start working on the actual world of the game? So we are doing that. So when you mean the actual world, if you mean the exact map, once we figure out the things we're figuring out now, and that's the whole point of the RVR scenario. How many blocks can be in a castle? Kind of important. How much vegetation can the engine support and still maintain 30 FPS with all those blocks of that castle? So when you think about building the actual world, we're doing it now. This is the harder part, because when you look at CU, this is not a game which is trying to sell you on incredible visuals, like Black Desert. BDO, fantastic, it's gorgeous, etc., etc., etc. We're not trying to do that. So the harder part is what the art team is working on now with engineering, is figuring out, okay, how much can we do? How far can we push it? And once we have that, then they can start laying things out. But this is the harder part. It's discovery. And for a team that has a bunch of young, artists on it, as we've added, new artists over the last, few months, they have to learn as well. So everyone's getting up to speed on that. And it's all good. I mean, it's difficult at times, because you really want everyone to be able to come in and play. And, on the other hand, we also need this bit of discovery and the stuff like I talked about in top 20, getting the imposters to work better and to do other things for performance. Brennan, how does the team feel about the devout classes? Well, I don't think, the team actually has any feeling about the devout classes. Most of them aren't necessarily going to even play CU. You have to ask, how does Ben feel about the devout classes? How do I feel about the devout classes? The team itself, they're not all CU, will all be CU players. Most of them aren't hardcore MMO players. So, now, how does design feel about it? How does art? Looking good so far, like what's coming out. Doom, refund when? When we get back in the office. I said this, earlier. We're not in the office. We don't have access to data. I can't do what I need to do without access to data. I have stuff from the Kickstarter. I have other stuff that is on a machine. That is off the network, in the office. And I'm not going to go in and bring it out because this is the machine it's on. We did this, as you might remember, if you were backing with us when GDPR, I said we went over the top, and we did. I literally cannot see somebody's email address no matter what I want to do through a normal web interface here. That's just not how it works. And I am not taking people's data and bringing it to my house. I mean, it's just that simple. And it sucks, and I am sorry. But, Virginia's been terrible in terms of the number of cases. And, like other places, we were locked down. And as soon as it's, the numbers are finally look like they're going down, and we'll see what happens. There's nobody who wants to get back in the office probably more than, well, I'm sure there's maybe a couple who might even want to get in more than me. But, I'm not taking any chances. Janet, is in a high-risk group, and I'm not low risk anymore. And so, this is, for the most part, been our world, other than the occasional drive, to pick something up. So I'm sorry. I really am. We always pay, though, and all refunds that are in now will get paid. But it means going into the office, and just not going to do that. Not until, it's safe. And hopefully it'll be safe soon. Or safe enough. Gonduk. So the main part of the game world will be procedurally generated. Well, sort of yes and no. And let me explain why. The system that Andrew wrote does use procedural generation, but not in the sense of you're just going to say, okay, create me a world and you're done. Like No Man's Sky, for example. But what it does do is it allows somebody like Ben or Chris or any of the artists to very quickly build the world based essentially on pulling a lot of vertexes around. So there is procedural generation. We use mods, which then change what's laid out, but not in the sense of, hey, just create me a quadrillion planets, that sort of thing. It will still be created by hand. It'll still be created by designers and or artists, but not in the sense of you plug in some numbers and it's done. It's just a much, much faster process than games that don't do that, like Warhammer, for example, like almost every other game known to man. Swipper, is there a class you have in your mind that you've never designed in a game? If so, what would it be? Huh. I don't know if I've ever been asked that question. I don't know, honestly. That's a really, really good question. That's a really, really good question. Yeah, I don't know. I'll think about it during the rest of the stream. Good one. Real life Gobble, how many islands is the world going to have, or an estimate? No estimate right now, because size does matter. I mean, sorry, I had to say it, because it does. You know, how many islands are going to be? How many big islands versus small islands? What can we handle? You know, is the island tech going to work the way we think it will? You know, that sort of thing. Um, you know, if you look at the RVR scenario, as I've been saying, that's a good size, and that feels nice. You know, it's not too small, and it's not too large. You know, it takes you a bit to get from one end to another. So that could be the size of an average island. But we just have to see how it works out. Strike. Speaking of the overworld, there there will be manual changes later on in case some gross imbalances come out. Oh, got it. I saw manual changes, and I'm like, Strike can't be asking about the manual already. That doesn't make any sense. Yes, of course, of course. Nick, how is my boy? Yo, he's fine. He like many young people are even more frustrated, than us older people. With the lockdown, affects his dating, certainly, and his friends too. Serban and Genie, will cities, villages, towns be present at the game map at the beginning? Some will be, of course. As you know, each realm has a starting city, and then there'll be a small town, um, on an island opposite the safe cities. Because the cities are safe, they're not open for raiding, they're not open for anyone other than those players. And then you have the landing spot. And as we said during the Kickstarter, the whole idea there is that even if one realm is in a really bad shape, the people can always go back to the safe cities. They can always do some stuff there. It isn't like there's nothing that they can do. So it's not the perfect solution, but I don't think there is. I wish there was a perfect solution. Solitary, oh, hero, surprise stream. Well, it is Friday. But what you and other people who just came in missed, we hired, besides the top 21, we hired 4 new people. They all started this week. 2 engineers, 2 game designers, and the game designer for one seat, one for FSR, one more for CU. The CU game designer is was the senior game designer, a senior game designer. At Rift, then game director for Tryon on Rift. Sorry, my other monitor just decided today is a day for things to go bad for Rift, and he's focused on PvP. He was focused on PvP before he took this job, otherwise I wouldn't have hired him. We kind of need only people who understand and love PvP. Earl of Demise, is Camelot Unchained going to be a full loot game? No, it will not. Not in the main server. We will have, if there's enough demand for it, different server types, just like I did with Dark Age of Camelot. And if there's enough demand for, a full loot, FFA, we can do that. It's up to you guys. Brando 2, what is the criteria needed for having all the races back in the client and game, as well as the new races not yet to be seen? Just get them in, get them working. Things like the Giants, for example, as I talked about with one of the tech items, we got to make sure the tech works. For other races, it's just time. Look, it's, as always, it's a matter of priorities. And there are other things that the artist could be working on for CU that were more important and still are. But they'll get to them. And look, I love races. I, created, I think, every race, in the game, or the vision for the game. Albeit borrowed, obviously, from mythology, other than Sandra's Crazy Strim, which was fantastic. But they're not as important now as the classes. It's not as important as getting those classes right, because at the end of the day, races in this game are much easier to do than classes, because even though they have racial bonuses, and obviously banes and boons, they don't have the armor sets in the way you would another game where you had specific race and class locked armor. And so we're not really doing that all that much. There'll be some, but not much. Strike JK, have you roughly worked out how plot restrictions will work? We have concepts for how it will work. We have to see how it works in the real game. Obviously, size is an issue. Not only how big the plot can be, but how many blocks can be there. That's one of the things we're doing now, with the testing we're doing on the RVR scenario. So how many blocks can be on an island? How are we dealing with rendering so many? How close can these objects, giant objects be to each other? So, that's what we're trying, to figure out. And, things like, you hear us talking about meshes for, pathfinding, but there are meshes, of course, for the buildings, as well. And we'd like to find a way to make them even more efficient, to render them even faster, so we can get more blocks and more buildings. Okay, Brennan, are you aiming for pacing similar to War in terms of time to kill? Yeah, I mean, so, and/or fishing keeps. So, let's talk about the first one. For the TVK, one thing that I've said from the beginning about this game is that, we don't want one-shotting. That's not, that's not fun for anyone other than the person who just one-shotted you. So, you start off with a time to kill that's above 1. And then, what is the pace going to be like, for other, characters? And so, are we going to hit the sweet spot? I hope so. I think we're off to a good start. Not there yet, nowhere near there yet. But in terms of the classes, in terms of the way things are working, I think, forget the fact that it's not balanced. We know it's not balanced. We never said it was going to be balanced at this point. But I think we're moving down the path that will make balancing or much easier. So, I think that we want a game which is not, oh my God, I have to hit you 100 times to kill you, but we don't want one-shotting. And if we had to fall out, we would fall out towards the little longer rather than the little faster, only because, again, we want this, if sieges are to matter, and if traveling great distances doesn't want to feel like a total waste of time, we have to have mechanics in for rezzing. We have to have a time to kill that isn't one hit. And we just got to find something that feels. Sorry, this monitor is got to feel good, and we'll be working on that. Continue to work on that. Nigos, are you putting on any runes? Yes, we are. Sour Tree, that's some awesome news. Yeah, absolutely awesome news. Caldex, the Giants in a 90-day plan. Well, the tech certainly is. And we have to get the tech right first, because there's no point in building, our Giants if we can't make the tech work. Because then we'll just take Giants out. As much as I want to see Giants in the game, they have to be meaningful. And I don't mean they have to be, the Giants of Game of Thrones, but we can start with them, as bigger than the humans, and then get bigger. We just have to see where they are. Because in real life, for those of you who, ever stood next to somebody who's 7 foot, or played basketball against somebody who's 7 feet, and look, I'm not a small guy. I mean, 6'2" plus here. All of a sudden you're looking up to somebody who's who's a foot bigger, and it's like, damn, just damn, they feel so much bigger. And especially when if you watch them just on TV, you think they don't look all that much bigger. When you get there and you actually stand next to a dude who's 7 feet tall, you feel like it's going to be, that guy is a giant. So we'll get this right. I don't want to miss. So good. Nicholas again regarding pots. Will we be able to build on mountain tiles, either mountainside or on the peak, even if it's not every mountain? We'd like to be able to do that, of course, but don't forget stability. Jeffrey Holiday just came to show support. Cannot wait. Us too. Trust me. Smurflord. Glad to see the devs still going strong. Super strong. I mean, look. I know this was hard to believe in February, but when we said we were still committed, we were still committed. And as the hires this week should show you, yep, we still are committed. Glam. Real life Gabo, will you be seeing pops in the new scenario? I assume you mean. I hope so. Places of power are kind of important, kind of crucial to this game. I know that Chris has gone through the documentation on the Dragon's Web and was excited. I hope to catch up with him today. And Alex had actually talked to them about their first week in the studio. Thornies, thank you for being an X Dayak. Thank you for being a Dayak player, even if you are X. Yes, there is a Darkness Falls, and it'll be pretty damn cool. Dreamers, any thought on implementing terrain conditions that impact movement speed? Already does, and I would like to do more. Weather too, as well. Strike date, JK, will there be ways to circumvent pathing restrictions by train? Absolutely. Absolutely. Will you have a trophy system similar to War? Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, that was a great system. I don't want to talk about things that I might have because then people get to say, oh, wait, looking to delay. I'm not looking to delay. I would love to have a trophy system. I'd love to have, look, the Tome of Knowledge, I think, was the best of that type ever done in an MMO. I thought that was a great job by all of us. It was something that I really believed in, and we did a super great job on it. I was very pleased with how the team delivered on that. Brendan, have the scenarios been designed exclusively for testing purposes? Yes, yes, yes. So these scenarios, there are only two possibilities for them inside CU. One, as we've talked about from the beginning, as training areas. New players coming in, and we want to throw them into a match where they can learn how to use the ability system. Now, if for whatever reason, and we're not thinking of doing this, but if for whatever reason we decided to go with a non-build-your-own-ability system, then I might remove that, those starting instances. But because you have starting instances, because you have a build-your-own-ability system, having starting instances where people can learn how to use, what will be a more complicated starting set of skills like non-existent than you have in other games. Throwing them out into the real world, I think, is asking a bit too much, but throwing them into a contained environment where they can craft their skills, get into combat, I think is perfectly acceptable. But other than that, no. Scenarios are joyful. They can be great. I mean, Ragnarok is a scenario. Essentially, it's a mod to the CU engine or to the Unchained engine. You can easily call it a scenario, and Warhammer had some great scenarios. I think scenarios are lovely, but that doesn't make sense for CU as much as I'd like to. just because they're fun. It doesn't fit the game. Odovic, the new hires, East or West Coast? Both. Same with the rag team. Both. Look, we'll take people wherever we can get them. I mean, look, we would love them all. We'd love everyone to be at one place. That would be better for all of us. It would help, without a doubt, it would help, the team in terms of communication and productivity. But that's not happening. So in terms of the people that we've hired, though, Ian is East Coast. Chris is East Coast and will probably be coming up to Virginia. 99% certain of that. Carl is remote West Coast and will be staying most likely remote. And Alex is also West Coast and he's Seattle-based. So they're split. The fact that, Chris is going to be Virginia-based is great for CU because I do think there's an advantage there. But the good news for Ragnarok is that, Ragnarok's a simpler game. It does not have the complexity of CU. And so it'll be much easier for Alex and I to do the brain dumps, to do the work on Overmind, and not have to be in the same office. But right now it doesn't matter because almost all of us are working from home anyway. Lortween, will shape changes be in at launch? We'll see. It'd be great. Brand, have you spec'd the Dragon Challenges concept and the player rewards? Nope, have not. We should. They all fall into that bucket of mine of just definitely not one of my. It's a good characteristic, but it doesn't help us make money. So I don't know. Of not wanting to, put up so many bright shinies to get people to pledge. It's the whole thing with selling ships. Then it's not an inherently evil concept. Far from it. But it's just not something I do. So, but I do have to do that. Pepsi's awesome would be great. Yeah, I agree. Benoit, what is the process in place to prioritize features in your roadmap and user stories and development? We talk about things, and a very simple discussion is, we look at a feature, see, the degree of difficulty. How much time does it take to do this? And then we look at how important it is to CU, overall. And then look, well, is it important getting it in now? Or is it better is it okay if we get it in later? Something like Giants, you want to get in earlier because you might have the time. The things that Giants will affect, you might not have the time to change if you wait too long. And it's the same thing with some things as well with character classes. I've said that, with, anything that uses the veil or the stealth, I would like to have them in earlier if possible, because that allows us to get the stealth mechanic and the veil mechanic all working properly. But they could be delayed. There are other things like building destruction that you cannot wait for, or engine performance. You cannot wait for that. Every game that has done that has failed, not miserably, but has failed to be as successful as it could have been because they waited too long to do some of the hard challenges. And, whatever one can say about us, and there's a lot of things you could say, good and bad, we've met those challenges, and we've done them first. We did hey, you can have this building with 9 million plus blocks, destroy it real time, with physics, with 1,000 catapults, and players, and NPCs firing fireballs, and archers. So we did that. It took us a lot longer than we thought it would, but we did it. And so now we get to move on to the better things, and the more fun things. Well, it wasn't fun. Not as much fun for me. I love classes and races, so. Pep, again, thanks. Yeah, the tone was awesome. I mean, It wasn't like that was the most original idea I ever had in the world, because it wasn't. But, most of us, as game developers, base our work on other things. It's just how it is. It's like, come on, right? Um, but I think what the team did with that, was great. And I couldn't be. That is one of the things that when you look back at Warhammer, I am so proud of, is that the tome of knowledge was awesome, and if we had another year, it would be even more awesome, but we didn't. Tataki, is it too late to pledge to the game? No, not too late. What have you been working on? Well, I just gave a list of 21 items that we've been working on in the last 2 weeks. TLDR, performance, classes, blowing shit up, and grass, and more grass. And not the fun kind you smoke, the kind that makes you want to smoke because it's frustrating that we can't get as much grass in the game as we would like. But, it's the same problem that other people who develop their own engine face. So we're just kind of going to have to go through that. But yeah, no, you'd be welcome to pledge. We're moving forward, and we just added 4 new people to the company this week. Jay, do you have any interest in building a competitive modern-day first-person shooter like Counter-Strike with MageStorm? Do I have interest? Sure. I mean, we have an engine that could do it with, some additional work, but that's not my focus right now. We got too much on our plate already, and we're building an engine. CU. RAG, and as the update talked about, improvements to Cube. I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day, and you guys all know him. His name is Scott Hartzman. I've known him literally since he was a teenager, back in the Genie days, and he's one of the guys I respect, more than anyone else, in the game industry. I think Scott's great, and so we were chatting. And, he was just like, so fill me in on everything you've got going on. And, I told him exactly what we were doing. And he said, how big are you these days? And I told him, he said, you really are batshit crazy, aren't you? I go, yeah, I haven't changed. So, we got a lot to do, and it's getting done. And Ragnarok's moving forward, CU's moving forward, the engine's moving forward, and Cube is moving forward. And as testament, to a great bunch of guys and gals that I am fortunate enough every day to work with. But I would like to do a MageStorm sequel so badly. I love that game. Spellbinder wasn't MageStorm. I mean, we tried hard, and the graphics were better, but it wasn't the game that we all hoped. We really wanted to do a great sequel to it, and it just wasn't that. It wasn't a bad game, but it wasn't the game that it could have been, and that was a shame. Lockstock, which classes are definitely making launch? All the ones that we've said, will be there. We'll be there, and hopefully we'll get a couple of extenders in. Nacho, my dear friend, in the most loving way, how do you deal with the fear, anxiety of over engineering? Oh man, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, look, is that something, that we're doing now? I don't think so. Not yet. Could we go down that path? Yes. Will we? No. Now, why am I so friggin' confident about that one? Because, frankly, the investors would get somebody else. If I decided to go all batshit when it comes to that. They would not be happy with me. So look at what we've said we were going to do. When you go back to our Kickstarter, we wanted to have 500 people in a battle at 30 frames a second. We accomplished that. And as some of you have pointed out, and not you because you didn't say this in this message, but others, well, why are you doing this thing with buildings, Mark? Well, but if we want to have 30 frames a second when there are 500 people in the battle, when they're around the keep, we have to do that. we've stopped trying to go beyond what we are going beyond when it comes to the number of players. Some of you have been in the tests where we've had 3,000, of the ARCs running around. We're not trying to go beyond that. Nobody who listens to us can ever tell me or find, a stream where I said 3,000, that's for tourists. We're good. And why are we good? And it's really the simplest explanation is because we put more time in it so we can maintain that 30 frames a second when there's a battle going on. So if you can handle 2,000 players around, just around nothing, you're going to be able to handle, most likely, a big keep battle. On the other hand, if you can handle destroying Travail's beautiful Cherry Keep, and you can do that with a lot of, NPCs or bots, then you can handle what players are going to do. So that's why, we are, going to do what we're doing, but why we're not going to go, too far. We're not. I won't let it happen. I want this game to come out. I really want this game to come out. And so I would have to be out of my mind to try to push the envelope even more. And I'm not. You haven't seen me do that once. We hit that number and I said, guys, you're not going to see me ever say that we're going to do more. So we're not. I think I missed something. Oh yes, Brand. Will Keyboards transition to Realm Kings or become something else for launch? Something else. And don't forget, if you take what we're doing, with Keyboards, there's that little place called the Depths. So, look, everything that we're doing, even with the scenarios we said, is for the game. Even with Ragnarok, as much as that pissed off some people, the fact is, so many improvements are in CU thanks to the investors and thanks to that game too. So all of this is making the engine better and making the game better. $10,000. Will Banes and Boons oh yeah, got it. Yeah, are there some copy pasta things in here? Absolutely. We're going to be expanding that list as we move forward. The Banes and Boons are not the most important thing, obviously, about the character, so don't expect them necessarily to be all crazy different, but they will, there'll be plenty of differences between them. Banes and Boons is only a way that players start their characters differently than other players. The key is, of course, what you do with the abilities afterwards. But it's a good start. Let's see. Action Pigeon. Hey, Mark, hope you and the team are staying safe. Yep. So far, we have been fortunate as a team. We've only had a handful of people who may have come down, with COVID-19. We got the team out of Seattle, out of that studio pretty quickly. And then, released the Virginia team, mostly, right away. So, we're very, very lucky. Weasel, would you say CU Dev is moving closer to content creation over engine development? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look, again, we just hired, Chris as another game designer. So obviously, if we were just worried about the engine, I wouldn't be worried about bringing in a senior game designer. So yes. Jay, big fan of your games. Thanks for all your work. Thank you. Thanks for the kind words. Optics, how are you? Haven't seen you in a bit. Nacho, I think you are a bit out of your mind, though. Oh, a bit? Hey, look, and Scott said it. I mean, yeah, I am. I know I am. Most sane people wouldn't have even started this, and most sane people would have cut their losses a while ago. But I'm not. I mean, I know I'm not. I believe in this game. I believe in the team. I believe in the engine. I believe in our backers. And so, and Janet made some sacrifices, to make this happen. And we're going to continue. And, the vast majority of you are wonderfully kind, patient people. And like everything else in the world, some of you are just terrible, awful. The emails that I get are, oh, epic. Um, but, look, it goes along with what we're doing. We believe in each other. We believe in, trying to do something great. And that's hard. And we have done so much of what, we said we would. I mean, look, for those, and there are, who are dubious, go back and look at what we said in the Kickstarter about how many classes we would have, what we would have in terms of the engine being able to handle things. We're already getting to the extended classes. Now, not the full class yet, but getting them in, getting the art in, trying to get a feel for them. In terms of the battles, we've got that. In terms of Q, look at what, Treville and Scott and others have been able to create. That's impressive stuff. And yes, it hasn't come together to a full game yet. Absolutely. And that's why we thank you, backers. That's why every week, and for every week that I do this, I will continue to thank you, backers, for your patience. And if that means putting up with the occasional death threat or burn in fire or the other things that it said to me, oh yes, I'm a garbage human being, I'll do it. I'll put up with it, because I want to make a great game for you folks. And like I said, it would be easy enough, shut down the company and just be done with it. No, we're going to make this happen. We are a hell of a lot closer than people think. I mean, we really are. Simply for no other reason is because we are at the stage where we're adding more content and we're focusing more on content. And we're going to be doing that even more. I see. Strike JK, in the future, I'd like to see a dynamic road system based on the NPC pathing system, so plots and automatically connected via pathways. Yes, absolutely. Caladex, how many rooms do you expect for the two mage trios at launch? I'll discuss that with Chris. Miles, disregard my above question. Didn't know you were watching both chats. Did I miss a question, Miles? I'm sorry. I don't see. Yes, I did answer that. Great. Yeah, I've got, I'm using Restream, so I get the chats up here. Odovic, given how quickly normal bugs spread around the office, do you have any plans to protect the team from COVID? Yeah, first of all, we're not going to tell everyone to go back into the pool. Definitely, we're going to have some social distancing. We're going to buy Andrew, said yesterday, hey, I should go ahead and get some masks so everyone can have a mask. Absolutely. We should do absolutely temperature checks. We're going to try to do our best. I am hoping that the number of cases in Virginia continue to go down. The trouble is, as all of us know by now who've been following this obsessively, like Andrew and I, for example, because we both are very data-driven in a lot of ways, that a lot of the cases that we're seeing as positives are people who've had it, not necessarily people who currently, have it in terms of being spreaders. And so, fortunately, the number of hospitalizations and deaths, have been going down. Unfortunately, over the last few weeks, I bet a lot more people have been exposed, to corona, and I am hoping, that the numbers coming out of, the protests although for their sake, because whether you agree, and it's the only thing I'll say about it, whether you agree or not on things, no matter which side of the debate you're on, I don't want people to get sick. I don't want people to get sick. I don't want people to die. I don't want black people to die. I don't want any of that stuff. It's bad. It's terrible. It's unjust. And I don't want people to get sick either from protesting. So, hopefully, those folks who, took time out of their lives to protest something they believe in, won't, get sick. Fingers crossed on this. Scary, really scary. We saw some of the protests here in Virginia, and, most of the people, fortunately, were wearing masks, which is good on them, really good on them. And obviously, D.C. was D.C., where they had even more people, and most of them, from what I could see, also wearing masks. So fingers crossed that this area, it's called the DMV, the district, Washington, Maryland, and Virginia. Hopefully, we can come out of this fairly soon, really soon. Let's see, Derailmers. Very sucks to hear about the emails you get. Oh, dude. I've been getting bad emails since the vault, or, since the vault. So this is nothing new. It's just, look, this is difficult. These are difficult times for all of us, and everything that's going on now as well, in addition to just Corona, has raised people's anger, frustration level, ire, whatever you want to call it. And, so I think people are lashing out more, than maybe they would have in a different situation. And I understand that. I really do. It's hard. It's friggin' hard on people. And I was talking about this with somebody the other night. For a lot of people, you don't even know that you're more upset. And then something sets you off and you go, oh shit, I wouldn't have reacted that way. So, I don't like getting them, but I understand it. And yes, resilient, I am. I've always been resilient. I kind of had to be. When I started, I've told this story before, when I started making online games, almost nobody even knew what an online game was. And those who did know didn't really believe in them. So if I hadn't had the resilience to stick it out when I told my parents I was giving up being a lawyer, in order to make my own game system, I wouldn't have been here if I didn't have that resilience, but I did. And I was fortunate enough to have the Lady J also by my son. Killglance, having been a long time Dayak and Warhammer Online fan, I'm all for waiting for everyone to get the game where they want it to be. Yeah, I'm good with getting it to where they want it to be, and I also don't want to wait. The team doesn't want to have to wait. We all want to get this game out, and we're working towards it. Optics. Oh, thanks. Much appreciated. I'm not going to repeat your whole thing, but thank you so much. Yeah, I am an empathetic guy. Anyone who's worked for me, I do empathy well. My son does empathy well. On the other hand, I'm human. So at times, I'm not empathetic, but I certainly try all the time to be. And, they used to say that about me when I was a kid, just like my boy. Brennan, what are your personal preferences regarding cosmetics? Are they best as cash shop items and game achievements, both or neither? So one of the things I said during the Kickstarter is that, if this is a full sub game, then I don't think there should be anything else other than, things like moving characters, or character slots, stuff like that. I wasn't even a fan of cosmetics. We said we would fall out in the not full price sub game. And, then I think it is acceptable to have some things. So would I prefer to have nothing? Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, it's not that I have anything against cosmetics. I really don't. But I wanted to keep CU as far away from it as possible. The key is going to be the numbers, and if we're the numbers to, make the game, successful without doing that, then fine. Hey, I'd be, quite happy with that. On the other hand, I'd also be for, if people want some custom stuff, that we could do that as well. So it really depends on a lot of things. And one thing you will not see, I can guarantee it, is anything that is pay to win. That just won't friggin' happen. Let's see. Cavalry, horses. Oh, look, I would love to have that, but the problem with having mounted combat is the mouse. And you know the drill. So many people would decide that if nothing else, they want to try the mounts, and then they want to try a battle with lots of mounts, and so that would be a problem. Again, render it. That's one of the reasons why I said that the spirit classes could be in the game, because if you look at what we did with Gwen for her spirit pet, they're not taking up as many polys as you would if it was a real live pet, like any of the pet class games, like WoW. So I think with the spirit pets, we found a really nice way of getting in pets and getting in pet classes that won't drag down performance. Horses would be harder, or any kind of a mount would be harder. We could see and maybe look into it at some point, but once again, that's a lot of work, a lot of artwork and tech. And we have to find a way of making sure that if 500 people are all mounted, it won't be horrible. Action Pigeon, absolutely no reason for people to be that way. Yeah, I get it. I know that. I understand why people are upset, though. I mean, look, one of the things I think we all have to do, and look, I've been saying this from the beginning of Corona, is to be kind. And so I try myself. I mean, it's hard. It's hard at times. But, you just got to remember, that they're going through stuff. And I can get angry, but I'm not going to get angry at them. And, do I wish that, I didn't have to do this. I didn't have to put up with this. I didn't have to do anything that even involved it. Sure, that'd be great, but that's not that's not the world we live in. And there are people who are bitching at me during Dark Age, Warhammer, bitching at Blizzard during WoW, and saying, I always use the example of WoW's general forums the first month after launch, where if you'd gone into those forums and you read the titles, you would think, this game is fucking dying. Because people. And, it's just how it is. And it's the real world, and, we live in it. And so, I don't like having to do it. It does take something out of my day. And when they're really mean